Addiction is everywhere. We get addicted to drugs, cigarettes, gaming, reading, or even sleeping. Can we get addicted to pain? So badly that we can't stop hurting ourselves to keep it going. Well, we are going to witness the worst scenario of a deadly and creepy addiction to pain. This may not be the first time you heard about this, but still, stick around till the end as an unknown reality is awaiting you. Your support is essential. Like, share, and comment on our videos. In the meantime, do not forget to subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell so that you will not miss any of our videos. It was in 1940s when the World War II was going on. Americans and Germans were using a stimulant to keep their soldiers from sleep. Too bad that it barely lasted 36 hours. Russia, being as competitive as it always had been, was digging deep to find a way to keep their soldiers awake for at least 3 days or so. With their crazy researchers on the edge, they came to believe the expected stimulant was produced at last. But will the process be over before they could be sure of the side effects? So, they were going to test it. And what better option is there if it isn't for their prisoners? The Russian government made a deal with 5 political prisoners that if they stayed in a room with the stimulant gas for 30 days, they will be freed. Seeing that they may not have a better chance, the prisoners shook their hands. All the test subjects were locked in a vast room with books to pass time, toilet, and also enough dry food for each to last for a month. Since it was a time before closed-circuit cameras, the tools to monitor them were limited to a microphone and a 5-inch thick porthole glass window. The oxygen level in the chamber was kept sufficient so the highly toxic stimulant gas is not over-concentrated. The first 4 days were fine, and the researchers were overjoyed for their success. However, it was after the 4th day of exposure to the stimulant that their conversations started to grow darker. The prisoners discussed about the traumatic events in their past. Then, all the prisoners began to complain about their circumstances. At first, the researchers thought it was normal for people to act like that after being quarantined for a few days. As the test subjects turned against their comrades, the experimenters still assumed it was a side effect of the gas itself. Little did they know that they should have stopped the experiment immediately. After 9 days of locking the prisoners in the test chamber, one of the test subjects started screaming, yelling at the top of his lungs for 3 hours and running around the chamber. The man did not stop, even after he reached the point where he could only produce occasional squeaks. But that was not the oddest yet. Not even one of the remaining test subjects gave a single reaction. How could they sit still as if they couldn't hear the man annoying them without a break? Were they patient, deaf, or was there something even worse going on? No one knew the answer. The prisoners kept whispering to the microphone until the second of the captives started to scream. The non-screaming captives, on the other hand, tore the pages of the books and pasted them on the glass potholes calmly, blocking the view of the researchers entirely. When it was done, the screaming inside the chamber came to silence promptly. So did the whispers. Everything was dead silent for 3 long days. After 3 days, the researchers were still checking the microphones hourly to make sure they were functional because they believed it was impossible that no sound was coming from the room of 5. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all of them must be alive. On the 14th day, without any other choice, the researchers used the intercom inside the room with hopes of provoking response from the prisoners. They made an announcement. "We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor, or you will be shot. Compliance will earn one of you your immediate freedom." To their surprise, the response came in fast. "We no longer want to be freed." Debate broke out between the researchers and the military people funding the research. At last, they decided to open the chamber on the 15th day at midnight. However, as soon as the stimulant gas was stopped and fresh air was filled in the room, voices from the microphone started begging, and 3 different voices were pleading as if they want their loved ones back to turn the stimulant gas back on. After quite a struggle, all the 5 captives were retrieved from the room. A few of the soldiers died in process, not to mention some others who committed suicide in the following days. But why? What happened? When they entered the chamber, in the midst of the sudden screaming, the soldiers witnessed 4 of the 5 test subjects alive. Even the remaining 4 were in a state not to be called so alive. The food supply seemed untouched after the 5th day. The chunks of meat from the thighs and chest of the dead person were blocking the drain. Consequently, the place was flooded by 4 inches of water. How much of the water was blood? It was still unclear. The 4 surviving captives had a large portion of muscle and skin torn away from their bodies. Some of the internal organs could be seen too. The bones of their fingers were also seen as the flesh around them was peeled off. Most of the wounds were believed to be caused by their own fingers. After that, the researchers tried to treat the remaining captives with care. One of them died, having injected sedative as the man fought violently, crying for more of the stimulant gas and bleeding excessively. Meanwhile, the second survivor, one who started screaming first, had his vocal cord destroyed, but still disapproved the sedative by shaking his head violently. As a result, the person had to undergo a surgery without anesthetic for 6 hours straight. Well, after the surgery, the patient wrote on a piece of paper, "Keep cutting." The doctors had to proceed with the other 2 survivors using the same method. When they were asked for a reason to hurting themselves, all of them replied they had to stay awake. Not knowing what to do with them, all 3 of the survivors were put back to the chamber. The test subjects were pleading for the gas. As one of the in-charge military officers wanted to see the effect of gas on them at this point, The researchers had no choice except to give them what they wanted. One died sooner, while another one, who was eerily smiling after he received the stimulant gas, was shot to death by one of the researchers eventually. Just before dying, as a reply to the question of the researcher, the last captive told him that he was the animal sleeping inside normal people, wanting to be freed. With those last words, the story of the Russian sleep experiment ends. The shocking truth: this recount is nothing more than a story. Yes, it is not a genuine event in the history at all. Let's think logically. How can someone survive such severe injuries? Worst to worst, the subjects must have died due to excess blood loss in the first place. Actually, this story is just a supernatural fiction that gained a widespread currency on the internet after appearing in Creepypasta, a website for short stories designed to unnerve and shock the readers, in August 2010. Maybe this story could have been around since some time before that, which we don't know the origin, even if it had one. But one thing I can assure you is that the story of Russian sleep experiment is a complete myth. If you liked the story and want to watch more like it, do let us know in the comment section below. Apart from that, don't forget to share this video with your friends. We'll be right back with more interesting facts from Quantum Vimana.